All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm John Quincy, Chair of the committee. I'm joined by Council Members Yang, Palamasano, Glidden, Bender, and Johnson. And there's a number of items on our consent agenda, which I'll just start to read through. The first item are a series of legal settlements. Second item is with Thomson Reuters contract amendment, just amending the contract for Westlaw and other legal research services. The third item is with Bar Engineering. It's a contract amendment between the city and Bar Engineering to increase the amount by $100,000 for a new not-to-exceed amount of $150,000. The city coordinator's office is bringing forward a number of items. One is an Energy Foundation grant gift acceptance, and then a gift acceptance from the McKnight Foundation for $150,000 for Minneapolis Commercial Building Energy Rating and Disclosure Ordinance. The Finance and Property Services Department is bringing forward, a number of items here, including air quality monitoring stations, amending a contract with MDH for operating air quality monitoring stations on various city properties. There's also the Mill Quarter Ramp Office space executing a First Amendment to the lease agreement with Freud Holding. Brokerage service contracts, executing a 3-year contract with Jones Lang LaSalle for real estate consulting and brokerage services. There's the authorization of executing a contract with Sprint Spectrum for a portable cell phone tower on Fire Station number 19. UCare Skyway Senior Center is item number 10 on the agenda. Execute the Third Amendment to the license agreement with FSP 50 South 10th Street Corp. For the UCare Skyway Senior Center. There's the Medical Review Billing Services, extending Alpha Review Corporation's contract for 3 months. Approval of appropriation increase of $1,376,000 to be funded from Property Disposition Fund for the completion of project related to the traffic maintenance building renovation. Also, item number 13, authorizing acceptance of gift of travel for Aero International Facility tour gift, as well as IT department, is bringing forward a number of items, including the installation of public safety cameras. This was postponed from our previous Ways and Means Committee with Xcel Energy contract to install a number of cameras in North Minneapolis. Then there's the Bentley Enterprise License Subscription, ELS, authorizing extending a contract with Bentley for a contract period of 5 additional years. Risk Management Information and Claims Processing System is amending a contract with Computer Sciences Corporation. Item number 17 is the Mobile Data Computer Support and Maintenance extension of a contract with Hub Systems. Number 18 is the IT Master Contract Program with Master Contracts, adding in through the procurement process with Delta, WRX, Global Source IT, Iceberg Technology Group, Intech Software Systems, Labyrinth Consulting, Macro Group, and Segeti, LLC. The 19th item is the Laboratory Information Management System, extending a contract with Star LIMS contract. Item 20 is for body camera testing and evaluation. This is executing a 1-year, $85,000 contract with Taser International and VIEVU. And I think we're going to probably have some comments on that item, so I'll pull that item for discussion and probably an amendment, and that's for item number 20. Item number 21 is Citation System Services. This is extending a contract with Duncan Parking Technologies for licensing professional services, support and maintenance for the citation system. Office of Emergency Management is asking for authorizing a 3-year master contract, list of emergency management and preparedness services for a number of following of the contractors. The police department is bringing forward a number of items. These are actually coming directly to the Ways and Means Committee, as the Public Safety Committee did not have an opportunity to meet this cycle. So we're going to be taking care of the mounted patrol horse boarding amendment to the contract with Horseman, Inc., accepting or authorizing a grant agreement with the 4th Judicial District Court for the adult DWI court grant. Photo imaging equipment, authorizing a contract with Dynamic Imaging Systems, Inc. for maintenance of the imaging equipment in the crime lab. And Coverdell Forensic Science Improvement Program, accepting a grant for this is $1,695 from Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Regulatory Services is bringing forward an item related to executing a 3-year lease with services with Blue Sky Veterinary Services in conjunction with the Minnesota Spay and Neuter Assistance Program at MAC. And then the Executive Committee has bringing forward a new appointed position for our consideration, Director of Business Administration and Public Works. Then the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee is bringing forward several items, including the 2015 license fees schedule. It's no increase from the current 2004 license fee schedule. And then a contract with Health and Environment and Community Engagement Committees bringing forward a contract with the school-based clinic services with Minneapolis Public Schools. Transportation and Public Works Committee is bringing forward the Ewing Municipal Parking Lot resolution adopting and levying special assessments for operation and maintenance costs of the Ewing Municipal Parking Lot. The 8th Street Southeast Street Reconstruction and Street Lighting Project. The Southwest Minneapolis Interceptor Rehabilitation Project, execution of Amendment Number 1 to the funding agreement with Metropolitan Council Environmental Services for the Southwest Minneapolis Interceptor Rehab Project. And then a public sidewalk replacement resolution authorizing repair of sidewalk panel and curb and gutter damage caused by the June 2014 storms without assessing abutting property owners. And then the acceptance of the low responsive bid from Terra General Contractors and acceptance of the low bid with Zoll Petroleum Maintenance and accepting the low bid with PCI Roads for several ongoing public works projects. Then we're also going to be adding on an item related to the Minneapolis Trans Equity Summit. We're authorize the execution of a contract for $1,549.50 for space rental at the Humphrey School of Public Policy at the University of Minnesota to host the event for reviewing issues facing the transgender community. And I'm assuming we're going to have a comment just quickly on that item, on those consent items. So we're going to be pulling, let's see, number 20 for further is it 20? Yes, 20 for further discussion and amendments. Are there anybody on the committee that would like to make any comments on any other items? Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just had a brief comment that I wanted to make regarding items 4 and 5, and then I had probably a couple questions on item number 29, so I can take that as you like.
Okay.
Let me go ahead with my comments on 4
Yeah,
and
let's
5.
do the comments and we'll take up 29 a little separately.
Okay. Thank you. So items number 4 and 5 are related. They are both grant awards to the City of Minneapolis, one by the Energy Foundation and one by McKnight Foundation, but they are both to support work that our city is doing with our commercial building energy rating and disclosure ordinance, sometimes called the Green Building Disclosure and Benchmarking Ordinance. And I just both wanted to thank city staff for pursuing these opportunities on behalf of our commercial buildings, and also wanted to thank the Energy Foundation and McKnight Foundation for investing here. We have actually are rounding on our third year of this benchmarking ordinance. We've had reports from public buildings. We've had reports from buildings that are 100,000 square feet and greater. And this next category, I think, is the category of buildings that will need the most support. These are the buildings that are from 50,000 square feet to 100,000 square feet. They may be buildings that don't have as many staff to review how they are doing with their benchmarking, what practices should they be undertaking. And this is the most critical spot, I think, to invest in. And so I think this is great work, and looking forward to work in partnership with the building community.
Very good. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. It's a nice step forward from some of the work that we've taken up in the previous council. So thank you for that. Let's see, additional comments. Councilmember Yang, you have your marker up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I wanted to apologize briefly about the items that were supposed to be in public safety. We just couldn't find a quorum for that, and so those matters were going to be referred to Ways and Means anyway, but we pushed them here. Yeah. The second item I wanted to briefly comment about it was item number 14, the public safety camera installation. I noticed that from the August 25th meeting until this meeting, I mean, the difference or the change that I saw was, a change of about $250,000, and that's pretty significant. So whoever our staff was, or whichever council member worked on this and got this to this amount, I mean, thank you very much. I mean, it's quite a savings to the city.
It is indeed. Thank you very much for that. And thanks for the staff work that got us to that point. Let's see. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll let's take up item 20, if you'd like, Councilmember Palamisano, and we'll see if we can get all these things passed at one time.
Sure. I wanted to add a proposed staff direction that you all have in front of you, and there's copies on the dais. This would be from myself and Councilmember Yang to additionally to execute this contract and ask for a report by our police department at the next scheduled public safety meeting, and that could be put off because I understand there might be some scheduling issues with people best suited to respond, but to address the following around the pilot study's design and scope. That includes these 5 sub-bullets about how we are designing that study, the measures of success for this study, how practical seasonal challenges unique to other places where studies have been done on this in the past will be addressed, how the study will be independently designed and reviewed, and the policy framework initiatives, more like a report on the committee's efforts around some of the policy around this work. As long as that's before this pilot begins, I'm comfortable with that. And I put that forward along with this.
That's fine. We haven't had an official motion on that, but we will be attaching that staff direction to the action item on this item. I just did want to clarify that this is something that is really in response to an RFP, but I do see DC Clampy is in the audience today. If you'd like to come and make a brief comment about the progress on this particular item and how we're going to be able to advance it by executing these contracts today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Right now, we actually have the 2 vendors selected, and with final approval, I hope on Friday, we can get product delivered at that point, or the companies are ready to go. We get product in, we train the officers, and hopefully by mid-October, it's pretty optimistic, but I hope that we have these out in the field and are beginning the testing at that point.
That's terrific. Now, this is in response to an RFP that was issued, I think, in April, if I got the RCA correctly. How many folks were actually responded to this RCA, or to the RFP?
To the RFP. Mr. Chair, 12. We had 12 responses. We selected 2, and then the others were either did not meet what we were looking for in the RFP, or they were not what we wanted. We wanted 2, and the VView and the Taser models are what we chose.
Good. All right. Thank you. Any other questions for the chief while we're here? Yes, Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if this is a question for you, Deputy Chief, or I do see Mr. Dahl just walked in. This is more kind of a numbers kind of question. I was just curious, we have the number for the pilot. I know the mayor has an amount, which we haven't yet gotten to our budget discussions, but there's an amount in the budget that's for a capital purchase. And I was curious if an element of this study is to look at what might be incorporated as an ongoing operational expense for these body cameras, and how we're analyzing that.
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
Mr. Chair, Vice President Glidden, I think I can handle this one. That is one of the major things in the study we want to look at is when we implement this wholly into the department, who is ultimately going to have these cameras, and then what is the cost going to be? We don't know how much storage we're going to need at this point. We don't know what data practices are going to bring forth with having to redact these things, take in data practice requests. There's a lot of variables that we need this study to show us. And certainly the operating costs are going to be dependent on what we find out, because we are going to be essentially quadrupling, if not more, what we already have in squad videos. And with going with a cloud-based storage system, there's a lot of unknowns at this point that we simply never experienced before. So absolutely, this study is hopefully going to bear that out. So when we come forward next year for the full implementation, we'll know what we need at that point.
Okay. I mean, just the other thing I'm thinking, and I don't know a lot about the body cameras, but it's a kind of small item. I got to think that they have a certain amount of just breakability too, and fragility to that size of an item that's being worn every day by somebody.
They're advertised as being durable, but
Okay.
until they get out in the field and to the staff direction, one of the things we're looking at is there's nobody else in the country who's experienced 30 below weather. We don't know what these things are going to do. When you walk into a warm building or out of a warm building with the glasses on, or the lens itself that's worn on the jacket, we don't know what that's going to do quite yet. We don't know how durable they're going to be in January as opposed to April. Somebody brought up a great point. Well, how do you, if you have them mounted in the center of your uniform shirt and you're wearing a tie, kind of defeats the purpose. We wear jackets as opposed to somewhere in Phoenix where they don't have to worry about putting a jacket on most of the year. Those are the other things, the functionality, the durability on top of just the storage and all the other ancillary things that we're going to be looking at in this study. And actually, we're kind of fortunate that we're getting to the winter, because I think they're going to work great in May. I have no idea how useful they're going to be when we're trying to fumble around at 20 below. It's setting these things up. Those are the little things we definitely have to see as we go forward in January and February.
Okay, you made me think of another couple questions here, so I apologize. But this is actually just giving me kind of a better framework of what types of information we want to continue to get to help us understand what is involved in fully understanding the budget needs to implement a program like this in a proper way. How long has Burnsville had is that pretty recent, or? I just say that because you brought up who has experience, and I know the news was talking about Burnsville.
Burnsville's had them for approximately 5 years. They got in one of the first generations, and so they've kind of grown up getting the better or the more advanced generations of body cameras. So they've had them for about 5 years up to this point, but on a much more limited basis. Obviously, they're much smaller.
Okay. And then my next question is, do we believe that we have the necessary talent within the city enterprise to do the evaluation needed on all the elements of this, or are you thinking that we would also maybe hire an outside firm to assist? I'm just trying to understand it sounds very complicated, not that we haven't evaluated complicated items before, but.
Absolutely. Vice President Glidden, there's a couple different things, sets of evaluation we're going to have to do. Certainly, our IT folks are going to be the ones in the back end telling us how much storage we need, doing that sort of work. Just as important on the front end, we were very selective in the officers, and number one, getting people who were truly on board to give us the feedback. We didn't just want to pick people. We wanted people who were going to be interested in this and were going to be able to give us that feedback. So we were very selective in that, knowing that these are going to be the people that are going to be helping write the policy. They're going to be helping pick for everybody else. We wanted to make sure we got the right people. So that it absolutely was something that we considered as we went forward. I think we do have everyone currently on staff that we need. Along with the companies, one of the things that is in the bid was the support, both training and the technical support. So right now, I'm fully confident that we have what we need for any kind of evaluation going forward.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. DC Lampy, with regard to the two vendors, I mean, what's the difference between the two? Like, what do they offer?
Councilmember Yang, just to, I think it's two completely separate products. As with any company, everybody touts himself as being the best, and they, can outperform everybody else. But essentially what it came down to with these companies that we looked at is TASER is somewhat of a leader in the industry. They offer actually multiple different ways to wear the camera. They have glass mount cameras, they have lapel mount, they have one that mounts right on the uniform shirt, along with evidence.com, which is their cloud-based storage service. ViView only offers the body mount, and that's going to be one of the things that we certainly evaluate and get feedback on. Which is easier to use, which gives us a better finished product. That's also very important that we find out what these things provide us. If one video is kind of okay and the other one is really good, that's going to be something we bring back to full council to explain. The other thing about ViView is it is a cousin of our squad camera, so there's compatibility with that system already built in. Now, whether or not that actually provides us anything in the field, that remains to be seen. So those are the main reasons we picked those two companies, and then certainly their vendor support. We looked at references, and by far and away, these two had the best major city references. Lots of officers involved in those rollouts, as opposed, there's a few we looked at where the top departments were like 50 people. Well, we're doing that in our test project almost. We wanted to look at those departments that are big in size already, and we know that company is going to be able to handle us when we do a final rollout.
So for TASER International, you said they had several different models or types. Which one are we using?
We're going to use all three. We want
Okay.
feedback in all three. Like we said, in the winter, you walk in a house and your glasses fog up. The first inclination is you flip those glasses up. Well, the camera's going to go with it. We want to find out from the officers, did you find it easy to rotate that camera back to get a point of view? Was it cumbersome? And quite honestly, then looking at the different points of view, when you're looking at video from here, from the shoulder, and then also from the middle of the body, that's something we also want to look at.
And the video will be full audio, is that correct? Or is it just video?
No, it's full audio as well.
Okay. And last question, we talked about Burnsville, and is their vendor one of these two vendors, or is it a separate vendor?
Yes, they use TASER, okay. And we've actually made more than one visit down there. They've been very helpful in showing us what they currently have for their staff as well.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, DC Clampy, for joining us today on short notice, but appreciate the insights. It led to some more questions, and those aren't over yet. Councilmember Glidden.
Thank you very much. And I just, First of all, thank you for the recommendation, Councilmember Palmisano and Yang, on the associated staff direction. I think to just help get some additional information, I wanted to know if Deputy Chief Glampy had had a chance to see this, and usually we just have a little courteous exchange about these kind of directions. So I wanted to make sure we got a chance to do that.
Yeah, no, actually, I just received a call about 45 minutes ahead of the meeting about that. So thank you for letting me present what I could today, and then certainly we'll make the follow-up on that direction and get the answers at an appropriate public safety committee meeting, either the next one or the one after. I'll be in contact to find out when we can do that.
Okay.
All right. Councilmember Glidden, I'm going to ask for your advice here. Would you like to take up item 29 on license fees as a question now, or as a separate item after voting on the consent agenda?
I don't think it's going to change our vote,
Okay.
so however
Go
you would
ahead.
like to do it.
Please, would you, let's take up item number, I think it's 29, if I'm not correcting, it's on the fee schedule.
Yep.
So, Councilmember Glidden.
Okay, and
Ms.
Ms.
Christensen, you're here to back us up?
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to do, I know we have a long direction that's part of the recommendation here. I'm not so interested in what's the fee recommendation, which is at a 0% right now, but just was curious about what was in the recommendation. There were a couple items, and I did go back, and I know I wasn't here in Ways and Means when you presented the actual report, so I did go back and look at the PowerPoint, but I know we haven't had a chance to talk. One thing I was just had a question. It wasn't part of this recommendation, but I just know that we have a little different system around permits, and what's the type of regular review that is done around permits. And for those on this committee, there's a state law actually that requires every so many years for there to be a review of permits and doing the cost benefit review there. But we don't have a similar state directive around fees and those different items. And this had been the first report in, I think, probably some amount of time that was this comprehensive, not that we aren't regularly reviewing those fee reports. And I was just curious, I didn't know if you were considering a recommendation that had to do with a more regular review or audit through finance department, so that we are not once again in this circumstance as people leave, the city, and we forget, we didn't have a regular scheduled report. And I have no idea what would be the right amount of time for that, if it's a 5-year or whatever. But did you have any thoughts, or were you thinking of making a recommendation around that?
Chair Quincy, Councilmember Glidden, you are absolutely correct that there is no currently, to our knowledge, a directive at the state level regarding the frequency of doing comprehensive review of the city's licensing structure. You alluded to an annual reporting mechanism required for the city's permitting and related construction related costs. We do prepare an annual report comparing the cost of the city's administration of the permitting process compared to what we're charging, bringing in revenue and the individual costs. But from the licensing standpoint, as you also alluded to, and you're well aware, this has been rather a long process to get into all of the individual activities that are associated with the charges that we parse out for the individual license fees. We find that particularly now with the implementation of the new land management system, it's requiring us to maybe even go more in-depth into that process than we had even intended at the get-go of the staff direction from several years ago. With that, we feel that with the amount of, in-depth study that will go into the upcoming fees analysis, as noted on the staff direction in the RCA, that there's a number of individual types of fees that we'll be spending a significant amount of time on, but regardless of the tasks that are listed here, we'll be doing that with just about every fee category for the city. I would My recommendation would be 5 years is probably about as frequent as we would want to dedicate a significant amount of resources. And within a 5-year scope of time, we would be able to capture many of the business process changes that might come into play as we move forward. Again, we're probably not going to implement a new land management system if we can help it, within 5 years. So we'll try to capture any significant changes in the activity levels on an annual basis. But as far as a real rigorous, in-depth study, 5 years is probably about as often as we would want to put the effort into it.
So then I guess my follow-up there would be, what would be the recommendation from the finance department as to how to put that in our processes and procedures so that it is clear that we are instituting a 5-year more comprehensive review. And so I'm not sure if that would be something in our budget book or some other place, but I might just pose that as a question for your review, and we can return to that. I don't think it needs to be a staff direction or anything, but
Chair Quincy, Councilmember Glidden, it's probably very timely to bring up that topic, as I am not aware that we have incorporated it into the city's financial policies with the mayor's recommended budget. But in the next couple of months, as we go through and review in depth the information incorporated into those policies, that would be an opportunity perhaps for a member of the committee to provide a recommendation during our markup process.
okay, I would be happy to do that. I had just a couple of additional things just to make sure I was understanding what might be involved in some of this review. One thing that wasn't a recommendation that I saw from your report, but I just, again, know that there had been some tensions around what traditionally had been a use of the budget process to, as sort of a typical time that departments might propose new activities or other things that looked at what would be, and then sometimes in the mayor's budget you would see an anticipated fee increase that sort of matched up to our new budget, but yet we have state and common law requirements about ensuring that the fee is related to the cost of services it takes to provide whatever that is. And so sometimes that has, I think, produced a little bit of just a tension in the timing of how those activities take place. And I didn't know if you had any kind of bigger picture recommendation on how to address that tension to ensure that we are properly following our mandate, which is to ensure that the fee is associated with the cost of service, knowing that we have a lot of ways to review what's direct and indirect service costs.
Chair Quincy, Councilmember Glidden, that was certainly something that we found when we went through the overview and the fee study for the past couple of years. And I think what we've really brought it to is a conclusion that the city does not perform an activity or an action based upon our ability to charge for it. Rather, we perform activities because it is the policy decision of the city to perform that activity. We may charge for it. We don't have to. If we charge for it, we may not charge more than what it costs us to provide that activity. And I think that's what we've gotten to through the budget process is we do not justify adding staff. We don't justify adding activities because we can charge for it. If we need to add staff or additional resources, it's because there's a business need or a determination at the policy level that the city wishes to perform that activity. We may or may not charge for it. So typically what we'll see is the activity is happening before the money comes in associated with it. Now, on the other hand, if there is a policy decision made to enact a new regulatory service, such as with the new taxi type of activities, that is a discrete new activity with the city, and the licensing associated with monitoring that activity does actually equate. There is a equivalent amount of revenue that's anticipated to be associated with that additional activity.
Okay, and I guess this continues to be something perhaps just to watch. I just think it's a little bit of this maybe innate tension in the fact that we do have a budget process where sort of a lot of policy initiatives come up as part of the budget process, but they can also come up separate from the budget process. And I just wanted to flag that because I think it's been sort of a tension in the past. And then my last question was, I was just unclear if what all was incorporated in this high-level direction to simplify the structure and administration of the fee schedule. And I just say this because I think as you go from department to department, we have a lot of different models within different departments of how you see those fees reflected. Some departments have separate ordinances for how you change the fee. You actually have to go back into the ordinance and do the others. I think a lot of that has been taken out of some of the regulatory services or business licensing. Fee is reflected in the fee schedule as opposed to being in the ordinance. And so I just say that as one example. But maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what we can anticipate as to what will happen here, because again, each department is headed by a department head, which may have different views on how best to handle fees within that department's purview.
Indeed, Chair Quincy, Councilmember Glidden, I must clarify that the directive incorporated into this action today is related to what is, I don't know if it's formally or informally entitled the Director's Fee Schedule, which is historically those charges and fees that were in the Regulatory Services Department, which, as you indicate, has now been spread out across multiple departments. This is but one fee schedule, one set of charges that the city adopts. As you noted, there are a number of fees for various activities, particularly throughout public works and other areas of the city that are still in ordinance. And short of doing a rather broad deep dive into all the individual ordinances, I think the ability to incorporate all of the activities for which the city charges is a longer than 1 year initiative. We've I think in the past year or so identified their existence, but the ability to pull all of those individual fees out of ordinance and incorporate it into one fee schedule that could be adopted on an annual basis is probably beyond the scope of the staff direction that's incorporated in this action. That said, however, I think particularly with the implementation of the land management, we are hopeful that we'll be able to simplify what I'll call the director's fee schedule, because of our ability to look across functional activities. Right now, for example, there are approximately 10 or 12 different license fee levels associated with various institutions, hotels, restaurants, et cetera, that are associated with the square footage of that establishment that may no longer be a direct correlation to the amount of work that goes into licensing and inspecting that particular establishment. So as we go through the land management implementation system, we think that we can cut down on the number of categories, simplify it for both staff and the business owners in the city, and more directly correlate the cost of the license to what it actually costs us to provide that service for them.
Okay, and then just to kind of carry this forward then is we may need to look at what would be a direction for the future and maybe in conversation with some of these other departments, because I do think there is benefit to having a more consistent way to review fees. And it's not just public works. We have other departments as well that have different fees that they administer in different ways, sometimes touching ordinance and sometimes not. Okay, so for the future.
Work is
All right.
cut out for me.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your indulgence here.
Are there any other questions, comments on the consent agenda items and the additional staff direction and the additional item, call it 37, related to the Trans Summit conversation? Seeing none, I'll move all those items, including the additional staff direction, brought forward by Councilmember Palmisano. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And opposed? And those items carry. Thank you very much for all the staff work involved across the enterprise to bring those forward today. The only remaining item that I see on the agenda is the receive and file for the supplemental tax notice information. Is there any conversation required about that? Would you like to address that, Ms. Christensen?
Chair Quincy, members of the committee, annually when the city is preparing its information to certify the maximum levy to Hennepin County, we are afforded the opportunity to provide a one-page information item for them to include in the truth and taxation notices that are sent out in November. We've availed ourselves of that opportunity on an annual basis, and the action before you is to receive and file our intent to, again, provide that notice to the residents of the community.
Very good. Thank you very much. And for that item, just move to receive and file that notice. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And that item carries. If there's anything else, I think we're completed with the agenda, so we stand adjourned. Thank you.